I'm Jenn Bonilla. Nice to meet you. Just as a context for perhaps some of my questions and comments as we open up this discussion, and I do hope it's interactive. We all need to engage in this very serious discussion and fun discussion, I hope. But just as context, my background is in the biotech industry. So you'll hear me talk about translating science into products and services that serve humanity. And using capitalistic solutions to get that work done. And so I think this is something that we all share a point of view about on this panel. And I'm very interested, not having had this direct conversation with Hunter, but I'm really interested to hear her thoughts about that as well. So opening up the panel, we heard quite a few interesting talks this morning. I heard some topics, of course, about the importance of science and engineering working closely together to iterate and, translate science into the world and then learn from that and bring it back to the lab. I heard some things about the importance of having social license to work. I heard some things as well about funding, and that's probably one of the things that triggered me a bit. I'm just going to put it out there because I had a sense that there was a perception that funding needed to be pure and not somehow corrupted by capitalistic intentions. But then again, I also heard an interest in framing some of the important work on ocean fertilization, in particular in terms of fisheries and capitalism intentions. So those are some of my reflections from this morning, and I'm eager to talk about all of those things and how we move forward with whether it's ocean fertilization or other techniques, which, by the way, that seem to be a bias more towards the ocean today. But I want to turn it over to Hunter for some of her reflections from this morning and the topics that might have you leaning into or that might have triggered you in a certain way.
There were a number of things that were said that I think are somewhat questionable, and some that I think need some greater discussion. Several people mentioned nuclear and how nuclear would have been the solution if only we had gotten into it. No. Nukes cost a lot of money. A lot of money. The small modular reactors are, I just looked up the figure, $20,000 per kilowatt. Per kilowatt hour, sorry. That's a lot of money. New solar, wind, the renewables are coming on at 4 cents and falling rapidly, as we saw a slide. Existing nukes are 20 cents a kilowatt hour. If you can even get them built, the 2 Vogel units barely got across the line and were extraordinarily expensive, $15,000 per kilowatt. So capitalism, economics, do the math. That point also comes up when we're talking about how do we solve the climate crisis. One of the things we've heard a lot of here at Being EarthX is we have to save the Earth. The Earth will be fine. It's humans who are in trouble. I like that. The Earth will be just fine. This is George Carlin's wisdom. It'll shake us off like a bad case of fleas. However, and capitalism again, there was a brilliant piece written by, if I can find his name, the board member of Allianz, who basically said this is an existential issue for the insurance industry. Oh, I love that. He said that if right now whole regions are becoming uninsurable. When a region is uninsurable, that means no mortgages. He said, this will be the end of capitalism. He put this piece, it was in The Guardian, it was also on LinkedIn. A number of wags wrote in and said, capitalism will be the end of all of us if we continue it the way we're doing. I would call that view of it crapitalism. We know how to do business in ways that enhance people, the planet. We use an approach called the integrated bottom line. I can show you 13 reasons why behaving responsibly to people and planet is simply better business. So getting around to the topic of ocean fertilization, well, the broader topic of how do we deal with the climate crisis? We know how to solve the climate crisis, and that was said several times today correctly. Stop emissions, and right now renewables are everywhere cheaper than fossil and way cheaper than nuclear. So let's, again, do the math. Start investing in the cheap stuff. Efficiency is at least as cheap as renewables. Do those two and you end emissions. End emissions, we're a long ways towards solving the problem, but was also pointed out today, it's not enough. Yeah. We are way above the CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere that existed when humans evolved. So then what? And I would argue, do the math. What are the cheapest ways of pulling excess carbon out of the air and sequestering it durably? And Peter, you said this, they're all expensive. Most of the ones we talked about today are extraordinarily expensive. There are ways that are not expensive and in fact are profitable. And I'll shut up here, we'll get into those in a bit. The real message, I think, that particularly at this conference, which is talking a lot about economics, is let's look at all the options on one chart. Invest first in the cheapest ones, and then see what's left over to have to do. Science is marvelous. I'm never going to tell a scientist stop studying. But as was also said, most of the science that was talked about today is at least 2 years away from even being much tested, certainly measured. Let's do now what we know how to do and see how far we can get.
Hugo, please, your reflections on this morning. And
Yes. Well, what incredible statement is what you said. I will try to complement with something that was questioned at the end of what Peter was talking. Is why are you not in the ocean? Why are we not in a cruise ship having this conference in the ocean? Meanwhile, we're fertilizing the sea, for example. Why we are not? Why we are in Dallas? Why we are here? And I think I have the answer for that. It's because in the Navy we do have. I come from the Navy as I was presented. We do have the same problem. Nobody knows what we do outside, because we do it in the high seas. We make exercises with missiles, torpedoes, and chasing submarines and all the stuff, but nobody knows the importance of that. So what do? We tell the Congress, you call it here congressmen, right? Congressmen, congresswomen, to come, congresspeople, to come into the ship and see how important is this. See what we are doing. And this is the problem with all of what we are talking here. Nobody knows what we are doing. The common people, they just don't know what is ocean restoration. They just don't know what is ocean area fertilization. Nobody is not in the topic of the common people. So what we are planning to do in our company is exactly that. We are going to show to the not really to the common people, but slightly more wealthy. No, not rich people, because going to a cruise line is not so expensive. We are going to show them all of these technologies, especially ocean fertilization, based on nature. Because now, as Kiko was saying, I will not say the geo word, right? So that's also a problem. Not talking about geoengineering. I'm an engineer, so I don't have a problem to say that. So what we are going to do, we are going to base on natural processes, because whales have done this for years and years. But when we cut almost all of the wheels, this circulation of nutrients was stopped, almost stopped, right? So we just to boost this process, and I think that's the way to move it forward. First, create a base of knowledge of what we are doing, and then move forward with this science.
Yeah, I want to pick up on something that I think you both hinted at, and Hunter specifically said about the science and the research itself being maybe a couple of years still away from what might be considered broad, scalable deployment in the high seas, and it just reminds me when we look at those curves and. We may not have that much time to make a meaningful impact. And again, coming back from my roots in biotech, when did we see this before? And two, in my career, one was the AIDS crisis that led to ACT UP being formed. Why was ACT UP formed in the late 80s? Because they knew that the pharmaceutical companies were doing critical research on potential AIDS medications that could treat AIDS. But the pharmaceutical companies were correctly saying, this is not ready. This is not ready. We still need to keep doing some more experiments. We need to be sure it's safe before we can start to give it to you. Yes, your people are dying. We're moving as fast as we can. ACT UP formed and said, this is not acceptable. People are dying. We have to move. We don't have 2 more, 3 more, 5 more years for you. How do we do it in a responsible way? How do we put it under protocols and working with the industry? Industry was forced to do it. Pharmaceutical industry did not want to do it, and it wasn't because they didn't care, it's because they were trying to do it correctly. I totally get when academics tell us we need to be careful and do this correctly in the ocean. Totally get it. I'm completely aligned with you. I work with the Cancer Center. Every day I'm doing things correctly to create new medicines for cancer. At the same time, when you know patients are waiting, and you know you may not have that much time, especially the AIDS crisis in the 80s, and you saw people dropping on you, around you like flies. And I was in San Francisco at the time. It was remarkable, right? No time. I feel like that now. The second time that happened in my career was with breast cancer. Similar thing. HER2 positive, a certain kind of breast cancer, very common in women, and the most deadly form. And there was Genentech with the potential answer, but wasn't ready. And who showed up? All the breast cancer advocates, anyone with breast cancer, saying we demand some way to get access responsibly. So this is what I think we're saying, is there needs to be a way to move forward responsibly. No one's arguing for just doing crazy things, but how might we do that? And I'm interested in your thoughts, Hunter, about that, because I know you've been involved in a lot of different kinds of natural solutions to the environment and thinking about how to move forward rapidly and responsibly.
We have a plethora of nature-based solutions. There are 2 big carbon sinks on Earth, the oceans, and then the grasslands. Grasslands are the second largest carbon sink. A professor named Greg Ritalik showed that, well, scientists have known for a while, 60 million years ago, the Earth was at 1,000 parts per million concentration of CO2. Anybody know what we're at today?
425.
Yeah, about 425. Do you know what it was when humans evolved? 280. Very good. Peter knows his shit.
Knows these numbers.
Go write a book.
Come on, the rest of you. You need to know these numbers. The Earth was at 1,000 parts per million. When humans evolved, it was 280. We've essentially doubled that since the Industrial Revolution. We're out of time. What Ritalik showed was the Earth decarbonized itself by grazing animals. About 30 million years ago, there evolved these little grazing animals that nibbled the grass at the edge of the forests. Oh, at 1,000 parts per million, the Earth is carpeted in forests. Bill Shireman said, trees, forests are the solution. Trees are nice. I helped create Tree People in Los Angeles. We planted over 1 million trees. I like trees. They're not the climate answer. Grass is, along with perhaps, if you all can get the science right, grass is the answer right now, today. Some back-of-the-envelope calculations from some scientists at Tufts. If we did regenerative grazing on all the world's grasslands, now that's a big if, but there are a lot of them, 60 to 100 years, we're back to 300 parts per million. And doing this is profitable. That, I think, is the key that we need to focus on. If we want an approach that we can implement now, today, and in fact is being implemented on thousands of hectares around the world by groups like Savory Institute, various others, we can solve this problem. And I can run you through the numbers of just how much carbon the grasslands of the world can sequester. On average, Richard Teague out of Texas A&M has shown 1.5 tons per acre per year. You multiply that by, and that, by the way, is a very conservative number. There are places that have shown 5 tons per acre per year. So let's take Teague's number. If you run that out, there are 10 billion acres of degraded rangeland. Teague reckoned North America alone could sequester 0.8 billion tons of carbon per year. That's a gigaton of carbon. This is just using holistic grazing. He measured carbon removal at over a ton per acre per year. Multiply that by the roughly 3 billion acres of grasslands, you get 4.2 gigaton per year removed just from grazing. Wow. Humans emit, pick your number, 35 to 37 gigatons a year, but the terrestrial sinks, the oceans, the forests and such, soak up most of that. We have 4 gigaton a year net human emissions. Just grazing can sequester all of that. Rodale Institute has calculated their compost-based organic farming, so this is vegetables, row crops and such, can sequester all anthropogenic emissions, all of them, every year. Put row crops together with holistic grazing, together with renewable energy, so we stop emissions, we start soaking carbon out of the atmosphere and putting it into the soil, you have solved the climate crisis at a profit. How is it at a profit? What's her name? Gal at the Soil Health Institute, Christine Morgan, Dr. Christine Morgan. They assessed 100 soy and corn farmers across the Midwest. 88% of them who were farming regeneratively were making more money than industrial farmers. And there is study after study after study of how regenerative grazing is simply more profitable. Now, what's really fun, take this to the rest of the world. In Egypt, Sekhem is doing organic biodynamic farming, lifting thousands of poor Egyptian farmers out of poverty and putting carbon in the ground. So they helped create a carbon market. Sorry, there is a carbon market. It does work. Companies are buying and the carbon is going into the ground. Yes, there are counterfeit examples, but there are real examples too. In the case of Sekhem, they worked with the Demeter Association to get this stuff measured. They worked with Heliopolis University to get it verified. They worked with the Egyptian Financial Regulatory Authority to build the market. It's now traded on the Egyptian stock market. This is south-south transfer, and it works. We're working with Vijay Kumar out of India. He works with over 1 million farmers, most of them smallholder, doing community-managed natural farming. This is, again, lifting these largely women on an acre or less out of poverty, putting carbon into the ground. He has shown in India you can triple productivity, double profitability. We just helped Vijay's folk go to Zambia, put seeds in the ground last fall. The numbers are now in. The harvest is now in. They have quadrupled productivity, tripled profitability. We know how to do this stuff. It's more profitable, and it puts carbon into the ground. Once it's in the ground, it stays there durably. This is why when the pioneers came across the Great Plains of the US, they found 10 feet to 20 feet of thick black soil. That black is carbon. It stays there for millennia.
What I love about what you're talking about is, again, the potential upside, real upside from regenerative approaches. Hugo, you want to say more about, and we heard a little hint of that yesterday for if anyone happened to be at the eCapital, or maybe it was a broader lunch, Dr. Sylvia Earle was on a panel, and she was talking about the importance of regenerative work in the oceans and taking people to really see that work happening live. But Hugo, what's the opportunity of bringing that kind of regenerative work into the ocean?
Yes, exactly. I was going to connect what you said and also what Kiko said about the CDR trap, right? That we don't have a commercial way to sink carbon because to measure the more complex ones that are really scalable, there's not enough money for that. They're too expensive, right? But what we, as Sylvia Earle says, what if we have a commercial model that finally people will pay to be with the scientists and be with them in the field, in this case in the sea, right? Sharing with them and knowing about them, and they are going to pay for being in that cruise, and that cruise is going to be mimicking the whales. So that's the financial model that we are. It's a commercial financial model, it's a capitalistic financial model, that can finally move forward. And a ship, maybe one ship cannot do the difference, but we can scale this. And one ship, for example, can sink up to 550 million tons per year per ship. So how many was that you need, Peter? 16 gigatons? So we need 32 ships going around the world, and we sink all of the carbon. And Lindblad has how many cruises has Lindblad, Jenn? 12, 16. So if we scale this technology of mimicking whales and we can relate it with the cruise business, we have a solution, as you are also proposing right now, for the problem that we are facing, and with a ton of more benefits. We're going to have more wildlife. We're going to have more fish stocks, Kiko. Yes, we're going to have more fish stocks, and everyone is going to have. There will be more jobs, right? So this is almost a non-political approach that will be a win-win situation for everyone with this new commercial approach that Sylvia Earle just said that it was the way to do it.
Yeah. I love that. Hunter, did you want to say a little bit more about how we engender social acceptance and license? Because that was also brought up this morning for all of this work, whether it's on land or on sea.
Most solutions that have been put forward by most of the groups are do what I tell you to do. Sign my petition. Come to this march. Install this piece of technology. And it's not happening. Really, no kidding, we're out of time. A very senior UN official approached me a year or so back and pitched me on an idea. I was going to quit. I was going to hang up my spurs. So I asked, add up everything I've ever done. Is it enough? No, we're losing. Do I know what enough is? No. Then why go down the road? Why burn carbon? He pitched me on an idea called COPX, Conferences of People Independently Organized. In opposition to what the UN has done, conferences of parties. They meet every year in an annual exercise of frustration in the 30 years of the COPs. This is the pin from Kyoto, COP3. Yeah, I was there. UNFCCC, the Framework Convention, any one nation can veto any action. You really think when Saudi makes $1 billion a day delaying climate action, we're going to get anything out of the UN? Yeah, no. Empower people the world around to solve these problems with the known solutions in their own way, in their own communities. COPX launched a month ago. You can go to www.copx.global and see what we're doing. Please join us. This isn't about me. He asked if I would steward this because he really is a very senior UN official. If the UN ever figured out what we're doing, they'd fire him. He has family that he supports. So for the moment, I'll be the face of it. This was not my idea. People say, well, what are you going to do? It's like, I have no earthly idea. We're going to make it up as we go along. We're going to talk to people the world around. And we already have a network of thousands of people who've said, I'm in. Join us.
Yes, I love that. Sounds like we should stop asking for, quote, permission and to begin to take the rapid and responsible actions that we can take by relying on each other and the incredible expertise in this room and outside of this room at this entire conference. What an amazing, my first EarthX, to see so much money and power and smart people all in one place. Why aren't we just taking action now? Let's go. Again, rapid, responsible, thoughtful, transparent ways, but we absolutely need to start moving, not unlike ACT UP, not unlike the breast cancer activists who said it is time and we cannot wait. So how do we do it responsibly? How do we do it responsibly? We have 3 more minutes. Is there any comments or questions? We welcome comments or questions from the.
Yeah, I love some of the things you said, Hunter, but I have a question about restorative agriculture, because we had a farmer from Iowa speak at one of our Citizens Climate Lobby meetings last year about someone who is practicing regenerative agriculture. But one thing he said was that his yield is low. His farm looks a lot healthier, but his yield is lower than his neighbors practicing traditional agriculture. So I started thinking, well, if your yield is lower per acre or whatever, then doesn't that mean we have to cut down more forests to feed 8 billion people? Explain why not.
His yield may be lower, and I would have to talk to him and see exactly what it is he's doing. My guess is he is still growing corn only. Gabe Brown, for example, now has 8 products. So his total productivity is significantly up, but what really matters is because his costs are down, because true regenerative uses no herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers. With the Ukraine war, the price of fertilizer has skyrocketed. His costs are dramatically down. Gabe was going broke. He is now quite profitable. So you can put any set of numbers up, but even if your particular farmer has slightly lower productivity, many farmers have enhanced productivity. Again, VJ tripled productivity. Zambia quadrupled productivity. VJ doubled profit. Zambia tripled profit. What really ought to matter to the farmer is his profitability. But in terms of feeding the world, 80% of the food in the world now comes from smallholder organic farmers, organic by default. If we help those farmers learn how to farm regeneratively, and this was the example in Zambia, their productivity goes way up. That's who will feed the world. It's not going to be the American farmer. That's a myth brought to you by Monsanto, along with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
So true. Any other comments from the group? Comments or questions? Yes. Yes, we have one right here, right behind Peter. Yes, it doesn't have a microphone though, but please.
Hello. Thank you for your time and sharing the information. I'm David with the City of Dallas, part of the outreach. So we educate the public about water conservation. When hearing about your discussion with increasing vegetation and grass, have there been discussions about how that may affect freshwater supply and how that can impact people in general around the world? Or if there's going to be any negligible differences or any discussions about that?
Significantly enhanced water availability and quality. One of the reasons a lot of farmers are converting to regenerative is that carbon in the soil enhances water holding capacity in the soil. Every 1% increase in soil organic matter is 5 to 10 tons of carbon per acre and 20,000 gallons of water holding capacity. So when you put carbon in the soil, you create sponge earth. It soaks up the rain that falls. The rain doesn't erode away. You're not losing your topsoil. If what you care about is water management, you want regenerative agriculture all around you. Yeah, Peter? Yeah.
And then also John.
Being the numbers physicist, you said that if we converted grassland in the U.S., and I looked it up, it's like 4 million acres. But 4 million acres times a ton is like 10 million tons of carbon or CO2.
Convert all the corn and soy, which now is primarily used. Right now, most of our farm acreage grows fodder for animals who were never designed to eat this stuff, so it makes them sick. Yeah. We put them in feedlots, so now you have a methane problem. Yeah. Put all that ground back into grass, put the grazing animals on the ground, now you have massive carbon uptake.
You didn't say that.
There were only a few minutes in this sentence. By the by, if any of you want the citations, happy to provide them. In fact, I may write this up and send it to y'all so you can publish it
Yeah, great.
Very cool.
with citations.
John.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask both of you about the ocean project. Where do you stand in terms of the rollout, in terms of getting a ship and then ships together? If you could just talk a little bit about that.
Jenn, do you
With
want to
Positive Polar.
start? Okay, yes. Well, we have been working this concept from two years, and we have invested $2.5 million in this project, and right now we are raising the last 2.5 to finally get started. And we have identified the ship. The ship is two ships really, multi-purpose ships. Where it's a platform for you, for the scientists. Has the good thing about that is that it's a combination because it's I will explain. It's an X roll-on, roll-off, so it has a huge space in the middle. It's called a cardiac area. And for the typical cruise lines, that this cardiac area for them is empty space. For us, is gold. Why? Because we are going to install the science labs. So this expedition cruise ship that has been remodeled several times to have a premium guest experience, now we can have this premium guest experience and show them your work, show them the work that you are doing in your labs, and then we will have the support that we want. And not only that, also it has special doors that can explain at 4 p.m. We are going to make our presentation. Everyone is invited. I will explain there how is the ship, but has special gadgets and a disposition that we can also spread nutrients when we have the authorization or the social acceptance that we need. So that is. I hope that I can answer. I did answer your question.
Yeah, that's great.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over here.
Hi, I'm Annie Wang. So it seems like whenever we're talking about the climate, a lot of the times it's pretty analogous with carbon, whether it be sequestration or capture, whatever. And you guys have also talked a lot about modeling after nature. So with the recent discoveries and research into dark oxygen, do you think that we should be placing further emphasis on oxygen creation or generation in climate restoration?
That's way above my pay grade.
Maybe others in the audience that are better suited to that.
What we do
specific
know
detail.
is carbon is not the worst greenhouse gas,
That's right.
and it's just the most plentiful. And it is one of the ones that is easiest to get a handle on and do something about. We're now very much in the realm of buying time. Reducing whatever we can reduce as fast as we can, taking the excess out of the air. And some of this stuff we can't get a hold of. We do know how plants take up carbon, put it in the ground. When a cow or something, goat, sheep, chicken, pig, eats it, the roots slough polysaccharides, sugars that feeds the microbiological community in the soil, particularly the mycorrhizal fungi, that mineralizes the carbon, and that's why it stays there. Without the animal impact, you do not get the carbon sequestration, anything like as much. So, methane's very difficult to capture once it's out there. We certainly can stop flaring with, this will be interesting, many of us are watching what's happening in Washington with the sort of ongoing wreck and what's going to happen to our economy. China has just said, we're going to stop buying US LNG. If that stops, and that's been the rationale for building all these LNG terminals, LNG is basically methane, which is not a good thing to release. You frack for it, you release a lot of it. You pipe it around, you release a lot of it. You put it on ships, you release a lot of it. If China stops, a whole lot of that LNG economics goes away. A couple of us were thinking of writing a paper, Trump, the hero for the climate. Because one, he crashes the economy. We know what happened to carbon emissions during COVID when the economy crashed. Two, he does things like this, stops methane transport. It's like, whoa, guy may wind up doing more good than any of us thought.
I so love
Yes,
that,
let
and
me-
I
let-
suspect he would love that too.
Let me also complement with the ocean perspective. Well, in the ocean, we all knew that it's less and less wildlife. And just increasing that biomass, almost everyone agree here is that at least 10% of that biomass will die and will sink into the bottom of the ocean, right? So for example, my father, he is a captain of a factory ship in a factory fisher ship in Chile, and he's almost out of job now because there's no more fish. So the fish stocks has gone almost to zero in several places, and that's why the ships are going to Antarctica to chase krill, to the Arctic, and the Chinese are like crazy fishing outside the EECs, right, the economic exclusion zone, because they are looking for proteins. So if we just increase that biomass, we will sink more carbon. Is an obvious thing. So and naturally, right? So you will not have to be concerned about the lack of oxygen because it's a natural process, right? So that was my answer to you.
Hi, thanks to all of you. This has been fascinating. Hunter, I followed regenerative or organic or biodynamic, whatever you call it, agriculture for a long time. I wrote some stuff for Rhodia way back when. So we've known about this for a while, although there's some new twists. And the $64 question, or $1 million question, is always, if 3 billion people change their behavior, yes. Do you have any light to shed on that?
First of all, making very obvious that this is more profitable. Farmers are dynamically conservative. They work really hard to stay in the same place. And fair enough, they cannot afford to take a risk. So one of the things that Vijay says is take a little portion of your land. Try it. And wherever he does this, the next year their entire property is in regenerative. It just works better. So getting the word out is critically important. Preferentially buying, what can you do? Every one of you in this room. You're not a farmer, I would hazard to guess. I may be the only farmer rancher here. Buy from local farmers markets where the farmers are doing regenerative and thank them. Seek out organic regenerative certified products. Seek out grassland meat, grass-fed, grass-finished meat. By the way, when you do, you will be healthier. This stuff is much higher in nutrient density. This is the work of a guy out of University of Washington. Every time you make a purchase, you are voting for what kind of a future you want. Is the company with whom you're working committed to behaving regeneratively? We all eat every day. As Wendell Berry said, eating is an agricultural act.
Or fisher also, for fishing.
Question here.
Oh, yes, question.
Thanks, you guys. Very challenging panel. Those of you who know me will sometimes hear me say that we have two questions as civilization. One, what kind of a future do we want to have from here? And equally important, how do we get there from here? You guys are very good at the how do we get there from here. I'm not so much of a good capitalist. I understand that, you are answering relevant questions here. But I also want to call out a bit of an elephant in the room, which I think Trammell maybe unwittingly said yesterday or the day before. Climate restoration. We don't even have to drop emissions. They'll restore the climate for us. And I want to be super clear that we understand that, Hugo, maybe your father was able to run a factory ship for decades, and now the fish are gone. We have an ecological overshoot crisis here, and we need to be very careful about getting there from here with things that can work in the economy as we have it, but also understanding that we have to pull back in so many ways. Just want to leave us all with that.
I think that's
Thank you.
I think that's a great comment. And again, I bring it back to medicine and the fact that you don't stop, and your doctor will still tell you diet and exercise, diet and exercise, diet and exercise. And yes, maybe you need to take a statin, or you need to take Ozempic or some other things to help you with and get you through some specific risk factor that you're facing immediately in the near term, but it doesn't obviate the need to do those behavioral and lifestyle changes. And we have significant behavioral lifestyle changes to make on planet Earth and as a species. And realistically, we know that those things aren't happening overnight, and they're happening far too slow. Perhaps as we close out our panel, some last words on how we might inspire that kind of action differently in the world. While we, as a community of people who see that and are ready to start taking rapid and responsible action, how might we inspire others along that path?
Ask the person with whom you're speaking what it is that they care about. We heard a lot this morning about leaving a world for future generations. Is that the value that the person to whom you're speaking has? It might not be. In many cases, it's my stock options. It's profitability. And again, this article, the guy's name is Gerhard Thallinger. He's on the board of Allianz. He said, at 3 degrees C of global heating, climate damage cannot be insured against, covered by governments, or adapted to. That means no more mortgages, no new real estate development, no long-term investment, no financial stability. The financial sector as we know it ceases to function. And with it, capitalism as we know it ceases to be viable. This is about saving the conditions under which markets, finance, and civilization itself can continue to operate. I have this quote written down because to many people, this will hit them a hell of a lot more than what kind of a world are you going to leave to your children. So find out what it is they care about and then speak to that in them.
Yes, I want to complement with something else. I'm come from a world of pragmatism, and as I said, it's not only about knowledge, about speaking, it's also about getting involved into action. You love and support what you experience. That's a natural behavior. If you are with the scientists, if you share with the scientists, if you see how the whales moves and circulate the nutrients, if you are with them at the sea, if you see how the phytoplankton grows, if you are there, I was there living in Patagonia. I saw how I did have with 8 years old to stop the pilot whales to to get in the ground, in the water. That was my experience. And I couldn't. I did get aground, and we finally had to take the guts and everything because it was horrifying. But I did experience that, and that's why I have this passion for whales. So I invite you to do the same, to get involved and support these businesses. That it's not only about our business. There are people there growing sea kelp. Go there and dive in the kelps. It's beautiful. You will see the otters and everything. That is what is called regenerative tourism. That's what we need. We need to support, because you love and support what you experience. And that is what we are creating in Positive Polar, and we invite you to stay with us at 4 p.m. And that's the answer.
When people ask me, what can I do? I say, find your dot. Every day, look yourself in the mirror and say, what's my dot? Do one thing. And then ask yourself at the end of the day, did I get her done? Do one thing. For the climate, for the whales, for whatever it is that you care about.
So beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for the time today. Thank you, Peter, for inviting
Thank you very much.